the opportunity, and you don't have to twist my arm very hard to come and talk about historic preservation. And every time I come into this neighborhood, I'm so jealous of the dog park. I go by and drool, literally. But anyway, sure, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And so, historic preservation, former Mayor Terry Goddard made good on a campaign promise to put together an ad hoc committee on historic preservation. And so that's when he became mayor. And what the committee recommended and what was approved was a historic Phoenix Historic Property Register. And properties get on the register through a zoning overlay. And so they go through the rezoning process. It doesn't change the underlying zoning, but it puts historic preservation overlay. And that gives us the ability to regulate those properties that are deemed historic. And when properties are on the register, we do review a design review process for those properties for any exterior changes. We don't care about the interior. We mostly care about the exterior. And it also created our Historic Preservation Commission, 9 people that are appointed through the mayor's office to serve. And my position, the Historic Preservation Officer for the city of Phoenix. We have a small staff. There are only 6 of us, and there we are. Kevin Wade has been with the office over 18 years. Very knowledgeable person, the most knowledgeable person in terms of what historic resources there are within the city of Phoenix. Jody Elsner, she has been with us almost 3 years now as a full-time employee, but she was on contract for about 7 years. So you can see these people have all been here a while. Liz and Erica both, and these are all planners. We're all planners. And they specialize in historic preservation. And they've been with the office 11, almost 12 years now. They started about the same time. And then the newest person is our secretary. She's the secretary to our commission, and her name is Bridget. And she just joined us last fall. So I have worked for the city almost 20 years. But it's coming up on 5 years in historic preservation. And so you might ask, well, what makes a property historic? And there are 3 criteria, and it's the same criteria whether you're talking about the local register, the Phoenix, in this case, the Phoenix Historic Property Register, the state register, or the national register. The criteria are all the same. And there are 3. And the first one is significant. The property has to be, whether it's an individual property or a neighborhood, a whole district, it has to be significant in some way. And there are 4 different ways it can be significant. And the first one, it could be associated with events or trends in the area. It can be an association with a person. It could be the design of the building or the way it was constructed. Or it could yield information, and generally what we're talking about there is archaeology. And then the other 2 criteria, and this is the one that most people are familiar with, generally it has to be at least 50 years of age. Okay? And then the third one is integrity, and the property can't have been altered so much that it can't convey its significance. So if you have a neighborhood of ranch houses and someone has tutorized or made it look like it's not a ranch, then it's lost integrity. That's just kind of a simple example. And we call these the 7 dwarves of integrity. These are the things we look at when we're looking at integrity. And so our first designations on the Phoenix Register were in 1986. So that's 30 years ago. So for 30 years, we've been designating properties to the Phoenix Historic Register. And so in that time, we have 45 historic districts. 35 of them are residential and 10 are non-residential. And we have over 212 individually listed properties, which means on their own, they are significant. And when you have a neighborhood, not every property in the neighborhood is significant on its own. It's all of them together are significant. So there's a difference. And so when you have a district, we have 35 residential districts, and let's just say, I don't know, the Willow Historic District. There are hundreds of properties on there. Not all of them are a contributor to the district. But if they were built or constructed during the period of significance and they've maintained their integrity, then they're considered a contributor. And you might ask, well, what's the balance there? You need at least 50% of the properties to be a contributor in order to have a historic district. And if you're talking about the National Register, the state of Arizona has an extra special benefit for properties that are considered a contributor. You can actually enter into the tax reduction program and save almost 50% on your property tax. And you might ask why? And well, for older historic homes, sometimes it takes a little bit more to maintain them properly. And so that's a nice benefit. And you can get that for 2 15-year periods. So for about 30 years, about the time, that's about most people's mortgages, right? So that's kind of a nice benefit. And I mentioned the design review process. And we're pretty easygoing in our office. People come in, we try to educate them on what's appropriate or not appropriate to do. And for 90% of what we do, 90%, we approve right over the counter as a certificate of no effect, because what they're planning to do to the exterior of their property is not going to interfere with the integrity, meets our design guidelines, and we approve it. Then some things, either because of maybe it's a brand new house in a residential neighborhood, because we have some infill lots that are vacant, or maybe a house burned down. Something like that, because of the scale of it, would require a certificate of appropriateness, which goes through a public hearing process. Or if somebody came in and wanted to tudorize a house, we said, well, that doesn't meet our design guidelines, that's not appropriate, and we would require a hearing in that case. And then another part of that process is demolition approval. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So simple things that we can approve over the counter, very minor work. It's approved by staff over the counter. And it includes, small things like additions and fences and things like that. And for the things that require a hearing, more complex work, it goes to a hearing with a hearing officer. And that's for, newer buildings or really large additions or things that may not meet our design guidelines. Demolition. So, the Phoenix Register can't really prevent someone from demolishing a house or a property. It can delay a demolition for up to a year. So it buys you a little bit of time to try to work with the property owner on other alternatives to demolition. And so, Arizona is very much a private property rights state. So our ordinance, some people think it's not very strong because it just delays a demolition instead of stopping a demolition. But I think that buys us a little time, and we can look at alternatives, but sometimes we still end up with a demolished property. This just gives you an idea of how much work. We have about 9,000 properties that are designated if you add up all the districts and individual properties. And so this really large block of color, that's what we approve over the counter without any kind of hearing or anything like that. So a majority of what we do is pretty simple over the counter, and they need if you're in a historic district, you need our approval before you can go get your building permit. And a lot of people don't realize we do this. We're a certified local government, and we do federal compliance reviews. So if any federal monies or land or anything is involved, if there's a federal nexus, we review it to see if there is any adverse effect on the historic property. And the property doesn't even have to be on the register. If it's even eligible, we still look at that. And we try to get people to avoid the adverse effect, or get them to minimize it or mitigate it somehow. And so an example of one we've done recently, they were widening a road, and they were going to wipe out a old historic hotel. And so we got them to change their plan slightly, where there is one building they took a little nick out of, but it really was preserved. So there are different things we can do to try to minimize at least the impacts on historic properties. And again, that's for federal projects. We also administer 4 different grant programs. The voters of Phoenix have been very generous to give a certain amount of funds. We've had 3 bond elections where there have been funds for historic preservation. Sometimes they're also for city buildings, not just grants we give to people. So you can see the amounts, 15 million, 14 million, 13 million for these kinds of projects. And again, some city-owned buildings, but these are 4 grant programs that we give out. Demonstration projects, warehouse and threatened buildings projects, and we have 2 residential programs, one for anyone who has a house, and the other one is low income one where you actually have to income qualify to be able to get the grant. To give you an idea of the scale of those projects, the most money we've given in a grant was $500,000, and that was for the Loew's Tower and the Loew's building downtown. We also, the exterior rehab, those are $10,000 grants we give to property owners to help fix their house. And also the low income actually is $30,000. So that gives you some idea of the amounts of money that are awarded. Warehouses, we have a warehouse district downtown, and so there's funds specifically for warehouses to preserve some of those. And also any threatened building. Probably the most popular one at the moment that people have heard of is the David and Gladys Wright House, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And back in 2012, it was threatened with demolition. These gentlemen bought it with the idea of demolishing it and building 2 new houses. And so that caused a lot of drama. And it's still causing a little bit of drama because we luckily, and that was in June of 2012, and then in December of 2012, a new owner came along. And so that new owner wants to preserve the house, but they want to also do some things the neighborhood isn't so keen on. So that's been an ongoing saga for some time. Oh, yes. Yes. Well, we did a building condition assessment on the house, and it does need some work, but I don't think it's unsound in terms of people, going in there safely. And they have been doing tours. They can't charge the public because it's in a residential neighborhood. They can't be charging money to go tour the house. They need a special permit, which is through a zoning process, to be able to open it to the public like that. Yes, and the primary use for residential property is for someone to live there. So if they were going to just have a party or invite people like you can do to any house, the primary thing had to be somebody living there. And so someone, a Wright descendant, did end up living there while they were doing some of those tours. They've kind of gone on hiatus for the summer. And that 2012 case that we initiated to kind of stop the demolition, it still is ongoing. It was continued last time till December. So it's the never-ending story. And I think there'll be a happy ending eventually, I hope. There'll be compromise and everybody will, but it's been a little bit of a challenge. But what I have here are some before and after pictures because pictures speak louder than words. And these are some projects where you can kind of see before and after. And so I'm going to stand over here and just flip through these kind of quickly. Of course, this is Tovre Castle. Most people are familiar with that because it's very visible if you fly into Phoenix or drive the freeways. And so this is just showing some of the work that was done it was an interior, exterior. It was a city project. The city does own it. It is open for, it is open for tours, very limited on the weekends. I hear it takes months in advance to get in. Oh, I'm sorry, am I in your, yeah, okay. This is the Orpheum Theater before City Hall was built. And so this was before the rehabilitation. This is a 1929 theater. We lost a lot of the other historic theaters in Phoenix, and this one is still there, which is wonderful. This is part of the rehab. Of course, there's City Hall there. These are some after shots. Right across from, oh, whoa. That's me. Anyway, right across from City Hall is the Walker Building. And you'll notice a really big change, not only in this building, but its surrounding area. This is a city-owned building. This is before the rehabilitation. At one time, this was going to be torn down. And you can see the beautiful rehabilitation work thanks to our bond funds. And, of course, the municipal courthouse is behind it now. Up on the second floor, the AIA, the local chapter of the American, what is it? Thank you. Institute of Architects. Their office is there. I'm like, what a great building to have your office. Wow, that's pretty special. These are some grants that we gave out. This is in the Roosevelt Historic District before. And one of the things that happened over time, as families grew, they would close in some of the porches. And so that's what happened to this house. But now, with some grant funds, it's back to its original glory. So this is like the most rewarding part of the job I have. It is just, it's so important, but it's just so rewarding. Here's a before, same kind of issue. You can see some areas were closed in, and this is in the Woodland Historic District. If you're not familiar with this one, it's just west of 7th Avenue and south of Van Buren. It's mostly made up of bungalows, and they're just charming. And this is after. So you can see that kind of before and after. So, a lot of times homes have been kind of messed up a little bit, but they can be restored back to their former glory. And so that's really rewarding to see that. Yeah. Here's another house on 3rd Avenue downtown. Again, you can see where they closed in some of the porch there. The roof looks pretty, and they need some TLC. We'll look at it now. It's beautiful. This is a grant project we just finished a month ago. So this was in the Woodland Historic District again. And this cute couple bought this burned down house. And they did not want to tear it down. They did not. They applied for grant funds. And, it's just now it's back again. It's just amazing. Just so proud of them for taking on that challenge. Wow, now this is the gold spot at 3rd Avenue in Roosevelt downtown. It was threatened with demo.
The whiteboard.
Oh, yeah. This building was threatened with demolition 4 times, and we thought it was going to be torn down. But finally, a buyer came along that wanted to restore it, and we gave them $400,000. It was in preservation bond funds, and this is it today. I mean, it's beautiful. It's got development all around. It's got Lola Coffee, Pita Jungle, all kinds of shops, and it's just, yeah. I mean, look, that's sad. That was a sad, sad building, but today it's happy. So. Now, this is another city-owned building. This is at Indian School Park, and this is Memorial Hall, and this is before the rehabilitation, and this is after. It's not easy to rehabilitate a historic building, and one of the things you have to do if it's a public building, you have to bring it up to code if you go in. So one of the things I just want to call your attention to is I think they did a fabulous job, and I wasn't involved in this. It's not my own. I'm not bragging on myself. But they did a fabulous job making the building ADA compliant. So you can see there, those are steps going up, so that's not ADA compliant. But what they did, which I think is marvelous, they put these ramps graciously just coming up here. It doesn't detract at all from the building, and it's now accessible for anyone who wants to enter. So good job on that.
Take the vets over there. The boys' choir is there once a month.
Yeah, and it's a fabulous. If you've not been inside is also equally beautiful. It's just a beautiful, beautiful building. And there's 3 historic buildings there. Memorial Hall is just one of them. Yeah. This is the Title and Trust building where Lesher and Mahoney designed the building. They had their offices here. Now it's Orpheum Lofts. And these are some of the shots on both the interior and
I
exterior.
worked in that building. Was
You worked?
Transamerican Title back in the 60s.
Oh wow, cool. Have you been in it since it's been? Oh, you just you can go in. I mean, there are-
Tom's Tavern was around the corner. The original Tom's
Oh,
Tavern.
okay, cool. We have a lot of fabulous buildings here. I hear from some people Phoenix doesn't have any history. You don't have any historic buildings. Oh yeah, we do. We haven't saved all of them, but now this was in the warehouse district. This is a warehouse that we thought the integrity here is terrible. I mean, what stucco madness is this? And all the windows. What is going on here? But we had someone who had some vision, and they removed the stucco. I mean, and then you have the openings back again, and we thought that building was never going to come back. It was never, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. This is an old photograph of the O.S. Stapley buildings, which are on Grand Avenue, just north of Van Buren on the west side. And so they were boarded up and closed up, and this was a grant for $300,000, and these 4 buildings are now. I need to get a more current shot, but Tuft and Needle is in there. If you haven't heard, you've probably seen all the ads on TV and signs everywhere. Tuft and Needle, the mattresses, and they are in all 4 of those buildings now, taking up that space there. And it looks a little better. That's not the best photo, but I need to get an update on that. So that's before they moved in. Oh, this was the DeSoto dealership on Central Avenue. We had all those auto dealerships up and down Central Avenue. And it was sad. The roof was caving in. It was boarded up and all the good stuff. And I'm like, what? And somebody, Ken Cook, is the person who bought it. He had some vision. And we gave them $250,000 in grant funds. And it's the DeSoto market today. And it's really quite nice. And it's unfortunate because we just lost, or a good portion of, not the whole building yet, but the Circles, or the Stewart Motor Company building that sold the Studebagers just up the road here. And everybody envisioned something just as wonderful happening to that building, but it's been challenged now. But anyway, there are a lot of people that are very upset by that, and it's unfortunate. And we tried to designate it back in 2004, but the previous property owners, the Singers, were not supportive of that. And the Stewart family is still around. In fact, their daughters have been really heartbroken about what's happened with the building. But we'll see what happens with the portion that's left. Some significant projects we've done. How do we know what's significant or not? Well, we do these surveys. And so some of our I'm featuring some of our ethnic surveys because they're really interesting. They're available online at phoenix.gov at our website. And you can read all about what historic resources, the importance of these different groups to the history of Phoenix, and what buildings are a part of that history. And so we have the African American survey, the Hispanic survey, and the Asian American survey, and they're just fascinating to read. We didn't do those in house. We used some bond money, and we hired professionals to do the surveys, and they're fabulous job. Something else we did with some grants and bond funds and all kinds of stuff is we produced a book called Mid-Century Marvels, and it's looking at commercial architecture from 1945 to 1975. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen it, we can't make a profit on this book, so we sell it at cost, and it's really inexpensive. It's a beautiful coffee book. You can order it online, or you can come to our office. It's $25, but it is a beautiful book. And I see it on eBay and Amazon all the time. People are selling it for $150, $200.
Yeah, seriously.
I can't believe it. I'm like, they're not. when we published this book, we got the rights to the photos not for commercial purposes, which is why we can't make a profit on it. We can let nonprofits sell it. We've done this with a couple. We sell it to them at $18, and they make a profit between that and the $25. But we lose money every time we do that. So, but we do that for nonprofits. But it always makes me angry because people actually buy it for this crazy amount when it's part of our. We didn't buy this to make money. Produce it to make money. We produced it to educate people about important buildings. So it's photographs on every page. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. The Stewart Motor Company was featured in this book, and there are 80 properties in Phoenix, commercial properties featured in this book, and we've lost several already, and this book just came out. Well, it was published in 2010, but we didn't start selling it till 2011. And we sold them all out. And then when the second publication came out, it had 8 additional pages because when the first book came out, all these people who had fathers or, people that were architects came to us and brought us information. So we were able to add more information to the book. Were you one?
My dad was.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And so it's amazing. It's been a real success. I mentioned the David and Gladys Wright house, and so you see an older photograph of the house, a little different perspective here, and this is a photo I took after the new owner had it.
Guy's lawn in high school.
Really?
Yep. I met him, and she gave me water outside when I was in 8th grade.
Really?
9th grade, whatever it was.
Wow.
I was just like, whoa.
Well, when the house was threatened with demolition, it was a big crisis at the city. We're like, oh my goodness, we cannot lose a Frank Lloyd Wright house, especially one he built for his son. I mean, we just can't lose it. And there was a lot of drama. And, we have other houses in Phoenix that were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and a church as well. And so we did, because of this crisis, we said we need to do what we can to make sure the others. So we got the okay from City Council to do a request for proposals. And, I'm such a lucky person. I don't know how I luck out because we didn't have much of a budget, and it's really costly to do these surveys. But Heritage Consulting, they have offices in Portland and Philadelphia. They responded, and they had this giving back program, and they did it for free. So what would have cost us a minimum of $100,000, they did for free. And some of the things that I'm happy to say, this is another Frank Lloyd Wright house. This is the Boomer House, and just last month it was added to the National Register of Historic Places, which is fabulous. And in progress right now is the Edelman House, and these are right beside each other up in the Biltmore area. And that is in the process of being designated. It's gone through all the reviews here, and now it's with what we call the keeper of the National Register, and they're the final decision maker on what gets added to the register or not. The National Register is honorific. It does not protect the property. There's no design review. There's no protection against demolition. It's honorific, but it's really important because it is recognition. And there are some historic tax credits and other benefits for being on the register, some incentives, but there aren't any protections. But this is a project we've been working on, and we still have the Carlson House, the Likes House, and the church on 7th Avenue you may be familiar with. Those property owners, we haven't gotten their support to move forward with the National Register, and I think we'll get it for the David and Gladys Wright house, but they might want to do their own application. So that's kind of a work in progress, all of that. You may have heard at the State Fairgrounds, they wanted to demolish the WPA building. Well, it's had deferred maintenance for like 30 years, so it's or something. It wasn't in the best of shape, but structurally is actually pretty sound. We had a building condition assessment done. It doesn't look good, and it's adobe. There's adobe walls under the stucco. Yeah, and so in 1938, the Works Progress Administration, this was their headquarters here, and you know how important that was to Arizona. Jobs, 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 put everybody back to work. They built things all over. You can still see the WPA stamps and sidewalks downtown. I mean, and so we have been fighting to save that for a year and a half now. And right now, the city council approved $120,000 of historic preservation bond funds to go toward its rehabilitation. The Phoenix IDA contributed $80,000. Right now, I hope it stays. Knock on wood. There's $120,000. These are matching bond funds. So right now, there's $120,000 in the state budget to go toward rehabilitation. The community has also raised some money for it. So I'm hoping that, you know, within the next couple weeks or so, we will have some good news. And I hope that the State Fair Board will want to preserve it now instead of, they wanted to demolish it so they could pave it and make room for vendor space for the State Fair. And so, you know, the whole effort is to show what some possibilities might be and the importance of this building. It's right on McDowell. It's the face of the fairgrounds. And, you know, so we were really quite desperate and went to quite some lengths trying to save the building. So that's an ongoing story, too. Maybe someday I'll be back and I can say some very positive things. Last year, City Council approved our first ever comprehensive historic preservation plan. Anything you want to know about the history of Phoenix, the history of our program, the benefits of historic preservation, it's on the links on our website, the phoenix.gov/PDD for Planning Development Department /historic, but I can send that to anybody who might be interested. But it is a beautiful, I shouldn't brag, but I will. It's a beautiful document, very informative, and it also sets some goals for preservation over the next 10 years. So it's a great resource, great resource. And this last slide. Woohoo! I wanted to make it a little bit more specific about your neighborhood here. But first of all, you know, we have all these commercial properties identified in the book. But we've just begun to study the single family and multifamily developments, you know, post-war, 1945 to 1975 are the years that we're looking at those. Well, that's your neighborhood. That is your neighborhood. And in that time frame, 2,400 subdivisions. And we are guessing, we don't have an exact count, 120,000 single-family homes. So we've got our work cut out for us. It's a lot of work to go and come up with a study and see what's significant and what's the integrity of these things. And so, you know, I will tell you, just from looking at old ads and all kinds of things, Hoffmantown, it was 2 subdivisions right between 15th and 19th Avenue north of Bethany Home, lots of red brick houses. Those 2 subdivisions were kind of special because it's mostly brick houses in there. And then we have several, these are just a few, this is not all, in that area, which is, I'm assuming you're looking at 15th Avenue to the freeway, Bethany, all the way up to Glendale. That's how I have always thought of the neighborhood being defined. But there are several subdivisions within it. And so mostly built in the 1950s and early 1960s, and mostly block construction. And these are some of the subdivisions. There are a few more, some smaller. There's some really smaller ones too. And then, oh my word, okay, so the Garden Apartments, if you haven't driven, I'm guessing many of you have, or maybe you live here, on 17th Drive, north of Maryland, from the 1960s and 70s. All of this is in this time period. There's a beautiful linear parkway and fabulous what I think are mostly garden apartments at the time. Maybe they turned into condos. Oh, really? That's fabulous. It's wonderful. I'm like, that alone makes it very special to have a linear park like that. I mean, I'm sure it's utilized. I'm sure people walk dogs there and clean up after them. I want you to know, I have 2 Shelties. I'm a very responsible dog owner. I pick up. I never leave. I know. Even in the dog park, you have to, even though everything's convenient there for you to pick up, some people don't. So I apologize for all those dog owners that don't clean up. I do clean up. Yes, but there's a wonderful website that talks about actually your neighborhood, a couple of, and so it's modernphoenix.net. If you've never been to that website, it's a great website. Allison King is responsible for it. If you've not met her, she's a very dynamic person. And I stole these 2 photos of all of 66 just as an example. I just want to throw I like photos. I don't like slides with nothing but words, but she had those photos, so I wanted to make sure to give her credit for that. And they're fabulous. We think that there's a historic district there with just the multifamily, and I think there's a potential for future historic neighborhoods when we finish our study. I think there's some real opportunity there. We do have one problem. We haven't, since Prop 207, which was the private property rights proposition, since that passed in 2006, we haven't designated any new neighborhoods because the way that the law was written, if the city makes any kind of action that someone believes has diminished their property values, then they can file a claim. And so our attorneys have advised us to have everyone sign these waivers and record them at the county before we'll process any applications for designation. And that's really hard to have. Sometimes you have hundreds of property owners and someone's going to hold out and not want to do it. So before that, we would just get a majority of people. But now you need 100%. So we have not designated a new neighborhood since that passed in 2006, so 2006 was our last neighborhood at Pearson Place, I think, that was designated.
Michelle,
Yeah.
do you know anything? I tried to find some information up on Lawrence and, is it Lawrence and Tucky? It's a barrio. It's an old Hispanic barrio where the farm workers for Glendale Farms used to all live right there. And I wasn't able to find, it was called the Santa Rosa Barrio, from what I understand.
We have, and I don't know anything about it, but unless there's something in our Hispanic survey, there might be, I don't recall, but on our website, and I can send you links to this too, we tell you how to do your own research. Allison's website also does that. So there's lots of ways where you can dig around and find information, and so I'm happy to send some links I think that people might enjoy reading. Some stuff is just enjoyable to read. It gives you a lot of background about the history of our city. And then some of the stuff is actually, you can do a lot of personal look-up information on your own house or,
Oh, cool.
so there's just, we have a tremendous amount of resources. Like I left them on my desk, printed and left them on my desk. I have all these old ads from this neighborhood. Yeah, they're hard to read. They're from the old Arizona Republic, but I have all these old ads that talk about these neighborhoods and subdivisions.
I still have paperwork in my mom and dad's house.
Oh yeah.
From the Womack area.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
actual brochure
Yes.
that they got when they
Oh,
purchased
that's
the house.
fabulous. You still have an old brochure from the original subdivision?
Bought it for $12,000 in '58.
Wow. Yeah, well, you look at all these old ads from 50, 51, the 50s, and these houses are like 7,000, I mean, it's really interesting.
My
to look
parents
at.
paid about, I think they said $2,200 for their house over by the fairgrounds.
Are there any individual homes in the Washington Park neighborhood that have been designated historical?
I don't think so.
Can I nominate my house?
Well,
Yes.
the thing is, when you have a neighborhood,
Yeah.
Most properties in a neighborhood are not individually significant. They're significant as a whole.
No, my house was built in 1927.
Wow.
I'm happy to take a look at it. If you want to send me, I have a couple cards. If you want to send me some information, we'll absolutely take a look at it. But those 4 criteria, for the 4 different ways it can be significant, that's what has to be met. So I'm not familiar with your house, but I absolutely take a look at it. We just recently designated a house, I guess it's north of Northern, about close to 7th Avenue, and it's the Hilgeman House, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. It used to face Northern, but now it's been redesigned, so it faces, is it,
Seven.
no, just north of Northern, there's a house, and I just blanked out on the name of the street.
El Caminito?
No, I think it's an L. I just can't think of it. Anyway, it's a beautiful stone. It's made from stone that came from the area, and it's beautiful. It was part of a citrus farm, and so there are some properties that are, the rest of the neighborhood was built during a totally different period of time, but this house, was so we do have situations like that. Absolutely, we do, and happy to take a look at that.
Okay, one more question right here.
Any chance of a historic designation for any of our subdivisions in our lifetime?
In your lifetime. Well, that's a relative question. I will tell you that chances are slim because of Prop 207. It's just a lot harder. I imagine there's a possibility, if you have a subdivision, especially if it's a smaller one, and you really have everybody on board and willing to sign the waiver, there is a possibility. But it has not, the thing is, it's not been challenged in a court of law yet, and I don't know if it will be someday, but we're kind of risk averse in terms of wanting to go out there and challenge the law because it's very expensive to take something to court. So that's a great question. We are doing individual designations now. We haven't been doing districts, and that's really, I think that's really, really unfortunate. Because and that's why you can still go for the National Register. You probably would have better luck on the National Register, and I can put you in contact. Vivia Strang is the person that goes to the State Historic Preservation Office, and I'm sure she would be happy to come out and talk to you all about that as well. But we're still doing, even with Vivia, we still have to do a study, a survey to determine, out of all these subdivisions, which are they aren't all significant. So you have to do the research to know, which ones are eligible for designation. And a lot of that has to do with looking at the houses themselves to make sure they haven't changed too much. Like Arcadia, people go in, tear down, build.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a historic. That's not going to be a historic district, at least not for the houses, because the houses have all been altered a lot or gone, rebuilt.
Michelle, what about that huge church on 3rd Avenue? The one-way street that goes north is 3rd, right? Big old church.
Oh, are you talking about the people call it the Abbey? It's First Baptist Church
Yes.
downtown
Oh,
that
yeah.
burned down in the 80s. They're rehabbing it. We gave them a grant. Now they're going to keep. It's going to be. They're not going to. The roof is burned off. So like if you look at an aerial, you just see the ground, right? You see the walls and the ground. They are. We gave them a grant recently to do some rehabilitation, but they're going to keep the roof off. They're not replacing the roof because it's going to be an open air event space.
Oh, neat.
And so it's going to be very cool, and that's, I always tell people that's our city of Phoenix ruin, the church, because it's been sitting there, and it's been a long time in coming.
My
to
parents
start
got married
rehab.
there.
But it's oh really? Oh, it's fabulous, and so they are very open to giving tours. I mean, they are very open. So it's First Baptist Church is what it was historically, but people refer to it as the Abbey. And if you Google, they have a website because they're trying to raise money. I think it's the Abbey. If you Google that, you'll pull up information. Our Mayor Terry Goddard's involved in that. Former
Oh,
mayor.
good.
Yeah, he's involved
good,
in
good.
that. And it's expensive and it takes time and but I think you'll see that in the near future as an event center where you can go and enjoy, whether it's music or a place to eat or whatever. And so
That's cool.
There's some not so good things happening, like Circles or Stewart Motor Company, but there's good things happening too. So we hope for more good things than not so good things.
How do they protect you if it rains?
Well, that's it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll have umbrellas.
Well, yeah. When does it rain?
It doesn't rain here that often.
Okay, let's give Michelle. I love that. Thank you.